The Pakistani MiG-19 might be the best MiG-19 in the game. Unlike its counterparts, this variant features multiple fuel options, including internal tank and additional wing-mounted tanks. This is extremely valuable for this jet. While you can adjust fuel load through the standard customization system, it does not feel as effective as having access to external drop tanks. Since this aircraft is one of the best dogfighters in the game, second only to the Harriers, it benefits greatly from carrying as little weight as possible to fully maximize its thrust-to-weight ratio. Its engines are strong and reliable, although they take some time to reach maximum thrust. Even so, they perform well in most scenarios where acceleration and power are needed. You also have access to the N9P, a decent missile mounted on a very capable platform. Given how quickly you can enter engagements, these missiles are ideal for picking off unaware targets early in the fight. Because of its performance, it sits at 9.7, where you often face missile-equipped aircraft like the MiG-21 and the F-6C. To deal with this, you need to improvise your defenses. Since the aircraft lacks proper countermeasures, you can use small rocket pods as a workaround. While carrying one is possible, bringing it to you greatly improves your survivability. The RWR is also quite limited, so you rely more on visual awareness to spot threats. Because of this, upgrading your crew skills is especially important to get the most of it. The cannons are not the easiest to handle, but the Chinese 30mm belts are unique and extremely effective. The high explosive content in the air belt is outstanding. Often a single burst is enough to destroy an enemy in front of you. Keep in mind that these cannons have a very high velocity. If you are behind something like an F-104 at around 1 km and it's flying straight, your shots will still connect. You can also carry bombs if needed, giving you some ground attack capability, along with a very effective APHE belt that can be used in ground battles. However, I would not really recommend it for that role. Still, it performs better than most Chinese options at the same BR, working in a similar way to the old Su-9 meta. Overall, it's a very strong aircraft, but it comes with a high skill ceiling. I do recommend it, but be aware, it takes time and practice to truly get most of it. With that said, let's jump into the gameplay. This was my first match with the F-6C, and I did not even upgrade my crew. As the gameplay goes on, you'll see why having a skilled pilot is so important for this aircraft. This match was essentially a down tier, so it should give a very good first impression. I was running the underbelly fuel tank alongside N9Ps, with minimum fuel of course. For the sake of continuity, this was also my first match of the day. As you may notice, I press W when I'm pulling high Gs. I do this to keep my pilot conscious and ready to maneuver whenever I need. Also, for some reason, right at the start of the match, our team seemed to collapse. Almost half of them were already eliminated, like that MiG-21 I just fired a missile at. So, while you watch me struggle to keep my pilot conscious in this G-heavy maneuvering machine, let me talk a bit about the J6, the original version of this aircraft. So, to give a bit of context, the J6 saw real combat during the Vietnam War. The Vietnamese Air Force started using it around 1968, and despite being limited in number, it proved to be a very capable dogfighter. It was responsible for several kills against American aircraft, mostly F-4 Phantoms. What made the J6 stand out was its performance in close combat. It could out-turn and even out-accelerate the F-4 in certain conditions, and its three 30mm cannons were extremely powerful. Just a short burst could be devastating. However, it had a major drawback: range. The aircraft had a very limited fuel, meaning pilots often had to disengage quickly and look for a place to land. Combined with the complexity of maintaining its twin engines, this made it less popular compared to other aircraft like the MiG-21. Even so, in the right hands, it was a very dangerous fighter. At this point, you probably already know what I'm doing in this match. but I don't think you're ready for what's coming next, because the F-6C might be the most fun aircraft I've played in a while. Yeah, that was cool to watch, but in the actual match it felt even better. This MiG-19 might be strong, but taking on a close 3v1 is never ideal. And remember when I said that 30mm cannons were good? Yeah, they are really good. When Gaijin made the changes during the Nuclear Thunder event, which I covered 3 times here on the channel, they buffed SPAA quite a bit. If you go back to this clip, you can clearly see where the airfield SPAA fired from and where it actually hit. Still, this was a great first match, with 3 eliminations, but it's nothing compared to the next one. In this match, things changes a lot. It's still a down tier, but here I have much better map control and awareness. I played more aggressively to get an ace, just to show you guys that it's possible with this aircraft. And honestly, it might not be this easy in the next few weeks, after the event ends, because this aircraft is really strong. It might not seem like it, but that underbelly fuel tank helps a lot. And because of that, here's another bit of story about the F-6. Pakistan used the F-6 extensively between 1960s and the early 2000s. Operating over 200 aircraft across multiple squadrons. Over time, they upgraded the jet with better ejection seats, Western avionics, Sidewinder missiles, rockets, and additional fuel options, turning it into a more versatile fighter for both air combat and ground attack. During the 1971 war, the F-6 played an important role. It flew hundreds of combat missions and managed to shoot down several enemy aircraft. Including Hunters, Su-7s, and even a MiG-21, it also proved to be very effective in ground attack, using its powerful 30mm cannons and rockets against vehicles and troop positions. Despite some losses, the F-6 showed itself to be a capable and reliable aircraft, staying in service for decades before being retired in the early 2000s. Well, we are already at 3 eliminations in a short time, and see that F-104, the one I missed all my shots on? Yeah, he's going to stick around for a while in this match. So let's get into the part where I really show what the MiG-19 can do. really like the MiG-19, any version of it is good. But yeah, that was a bit of a skill issue on my part, the guns are not easy to use. And remember when I said that F-104 was going to take a while to bring down? Yeah, I'm not going to show out that running and missing. Let's skip to the best part. After all that, we still ended up with a really strong match in the F-6C, and ace actually. And now let's go into the ground and take a look at what Pakistan did with its aircraft. Now you can clearly see how effective this aircraft can be in ground attack. It did not take long to get a solid match using the 30mm belts. The main issue I had was with the map rendering and player synchronization. Come on Gaijin, you optimized the game to run early 2000s PCs, but we still don't have a consistent client-side experience. Aside from that, the best matchups for this aircraft were against Germany, the US and Britain. For some reason, Russian vehicles tend to absorb a lot more damage, and the SPAA, especially the Strela, can be very dangerous if used properly. Also, the rockets I carry are not from ground attack, they are my workaround against IR missiles. So for ground targets, I rely on the bombs and the high velocity APHE 30mm cannons. My main objective flying this low is to use the trees for cover and stay hard to hit, especially against console players, since they have arcade-style lead indicator for aircraft at any distance independently from the traditional spotting system, which makes them harder to deal with. I'm not too worried about radar SPAA, since they can be pretty inconsistent, so in this part I will mostly be circling the map and asking my teammates to mark targets, using pings and light tanks scouting to help me find the enemies, since we are starting to lose. Another great thing about this aircraft, since it's classified as a fighter and carries very little ordnance, you can spawn it again after around 5 eliminations. That makes it a cheap and effective CAS option. And throughout this video, you'll see what close air support really means. And for the final bit about the F-6, this is not exactly a story, but more about its specifications and how much Pakistan invested in the aircraft.
If we don't do something fast, the enemy will win.
This version represents one of the more advanced modernization efforts, but even then, it still lacked some ordnance options, or at least, some of them appeared only in later years, while the aircraft remained in service. For example, there are cases of F-6 carrying matter rocket pods.
Attention to the designated grid zone! Attention to the map!
Although reliable information this is quite limited, most of what's available comes from photos rather than detailed documentation. In general, information about this aircraft is scarce online, and the more accurate details can likely be found in museums. In fact, this version was heavily inspired by display from the Karachi Air Museum, especially in terms of camouflage and overall configuration. Matter rockets could significantly improve this aircraft's CAS potential, and even its ability to deal with incoming threats. But it does not stop there. There are also reports of configurations carry up to 4 air-to-air missiles, which would easily push this aircraft to a higher BR, around 10.0, consider its current performance. And it gets even more interesting. There are rumors that some versions were equipped with magic missiles. So if you think this is the most advanced Pakistani version, you might be wrong. That said, information about these upgrades is still very limited, so if you know more about it, feel free to share it in the comments.
Attention to the designated grid zone. I agree! Attention to the designated grid square. Attack the C point. Attention to the designated grid zone. Attention to the map. Attack the B point.
Well, this next part is definitely a bit of a skill issue for me. I blindly followed my teammates' calls when I was trying to drop bombs to compensate for my lack of ammo. Still, it's not a big problem. We can easily get another spawn with little to no penalty. At this point, if you have made it this far, there is no reason not to drop a like. It really helps the channel and lets me know if you are enjoying this kind of content. This second spawn is basically a repeat of everything I've learned so far, so enjoy this short clip of me trying to save the team with some close air support.
Attention to the map. Attention to the designated grid zone! Attention to the left! We've lost, but next time,